Hello, everybody. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 12 of Denise and Galen Go to Korea. And this episode's going to be just really more a conversation between Denise and me about where we are right now in March, contemplating the fact we're going to be here now more than another year, and what that's feeling like given how we felt before this all began. So why don't we start with Denise confessing her actual feelings about coming here before we got this all together.
Obviously, I was extremely nervous, especially concerned about, missing my family and my friends and the life that I was definitely enjoying in Menlo Park. Initially, I had promised Galen I would stay 1 year, and no promises for the second year, but it's definitely been enjoyable enough that I'm fully committed to staying for the second year.
I think you should detail some more of the apprehensions that you really had about this the first time around, because I remember in terms of the conversation about whether this is 2 years or 1 year, and I signed the 2 year contract because that's how the teacher contracts work, and said, I'm not a slave. I don't have to do this. I can always quit. And I certainly would have intended to do that if things weren't good, but I think she's downplaying a little bit how you were feeling about this. So how much did you have to be dragged along this?
Oh, initially?
Yeah.
Quite a bit. We had talked about doing this obviously for decades, actually, but again, when the opportunity finally came up, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I said that when I didn't have any grandchildren and I wasn't old, but I was quite a bit concerned about coming. The challenge of being someplace where I don't speak the language and I really can't read anything, not having any friends, and you all know I'm a very social being, so all of those things were making me pretty concerned about my happiness of being here. I think I cried for a whole week, and one thing that really helped push me along was my sister Carrie said, "What can I do to help?" And I said, "Come and see me right away." And in fact, having quite a few visitors this first year has been a big boost in the reasons why I can imagine staying for another year, which is my way of saying y'all need to come visit next year if you didn't come this year.
Yeah, and I think part of the apprehension too is that while Asia was on the list of countries we were talking about, I think Denise for sure, and me probably too, were mostly fantasizing about Paris or London or, Florence or something like that, which I guess conceivably could have how things played out. But while this was officially on the list, it's one thing to have it on a list of things that might happen, another thing to kind of contemplate. We have never even been there before, and as Denise said, like zero knowledge of the language. Like we could have actually survived in France on French. England would have been not a problem. All that's a Romance language, at least you can read. So I think there are a lot of things that made the kind of reality of coming to Seoul feel more concerning than it would have been. And so when it became real, then we had to kind of process through what this is all going to be. And I remember making a deal with Denise about her being here essentially half the time,
Right.
which hasn't quite happened, but she's definitely traveled a bit and gone back to the States for extended periods of time. And I think knowing that that was going to be a possibility, which obviously was no matter what, but also then the way in which that's actually played out has been part of why the transition to this whole thing, at least in the beginning, seemed doable, because you knew that there were going to be things that were going to, even if it wasn't as good as we might have hoped, it would have been at least survivable. But I think what we want to talk about mostly today is how it's actually been more than survivable, and that there's been a lot of things about what we had hoped this would be like for us that make, I think for both of us, for me, the second year in a way more exciting than the first, in the sense that the degree of apprehension is a lot less than it was coming in the first time, both in terms of the job that I was going to have and then what the actual life would be here was like. And then I think it's true of anything, the second time you do something, there's the excitement isn't quite the same, and also the apprehension isn't quite the same. But the confidence about what you can make it and how it will feel and what's going to be good about it, and then also things you can try that you didn't get to do the first time around. This is true of anything. Um, Feels like a really positive part of what I'm looking forward to over the next little more than a year. So, what are some of the things you're imagining?
Well, the fact that I'm not the least bit nervous about getting on mass transportation and going anywhere to meet anyone or just to do something on my own makes the city a lot more accessible, a lot less scary. I know how to use the maps and the apps, and I'm not frightened to go out and do stuff. Um, it's a big city and there's so much to do. It's super exciting to be here where there's all this art and there's all this cultural experiences available and tons of museums, and we're getting ready for baseball season, and I love a big city, so that part of it completely appeals to me. And now that I'm not worried about getting lost or never finding my way home or not being able to communicate, it seems just like a great place to be. I would say Korean people are extremely kind, and the fact that we don't speak Korean doesn't surprise them, and they're mostly helpful in helping us maneuver around.
Yeah, I mean, language is a really interesting part of this whole thing because it's probably, I mean, most cultures have the be friendly to strangers kind of normal thing, but uh, as Denise has said before, where we live out here, there aren't very many foreigners at all, and so um, there is sort of like, well, these are the strangers, so we should be nice to them thing. And I think because of the Korean language and alphabet and everything, they're pretty like they're definitely not French about what the hell are you doing here if you don't speak our language. They're kind of surprised if you even try to say thank you or hello, and so there's almost no issue ever with not being able to speak the language. So to me, that just adds to what the whole experience is about because you look around and I can sort of read and sound out the words now, but I don't know what they mean. And we use our translators and stuff like that. But people are super accommodating about the fact that we don't speak the language. They understand that, like, why would these people speak the language?
And the people in the restaurants are always more than willing to tell you what you want to eat and how much of it you want.
Yeah, and usually we take their word for it. We don't know what they're saying to us when they tell us what we should be eating, but we can kind of negotiate this and use the translators. And because we're both pretty much willing to eat whatever weird thing somebody might put in front of us. Yesterday we went to a seafood restaurant and we got something that was definitely looked like insects, although I think they were probably like little
barnacles,
barnacle type things, even if they look, because there's these kind of sea creatures are insects of the ocean. So that those we're not like going to freak out about that, and if somebody gives us something like that.
They were tasty.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of ways in which our lives have these surprising things that are different from what we're used to, but have, because like you said, this daily life has become normal and manageable and not scary most of the time. I mean, I can't remember being scared actually after the first few times to realize everything's going to be fine. Even if it doesn't work, somebody will help us if we need to. But now that most of this stuff has become something we know how to do and have managed, then we get just to kind of to appreciate what the daily life things are. We were talking about, and this is another one of those kind of random things that we told stories about, like recycling. So Denise, like, I don't remember, except when I'm out of town, Denise basically refuses to haul the trash out on recycling if she can avoid it.
That is right.
And obviously it's not hard to do or whatever. But here it's a whole other thing. Like there's a whole other ritual around it, and you need your little card, etc. And it's sort of an adventure, especially the first time, because you don't know what you're doing. So this is just one of the ways in which the kind of differences of normal life have become part of the kind of fun of being here, even though the exact same task back in Menlo Park seemed like an annoying burden.
Yeah, me washing clothes and not having a dryer and having to hang them up on a clothes rack here seems like, oh, this is something I can do, and it's not so bad. But probably if you asked me to do it in Menlo Park, it'd be like, no, I have a dryer.
Yeah, the surprising thing about this part for sure is Denise, the housewife.
Yeah.
That was definitely not her vibe ever. Yet that's kind of, aside from, volunteering a little bit and some little bit of kind of during the day socializing, she's sort of a typical housewife now. And doing the shopping and all that sort of thing, but the shopping is its own little adventure.
Exactly. Taking my little old lady cart and crossing over the bridge and trying to figure out what the heck this is.
Yeah, I mean, there's 14 different kinds of.
There's 40 different kinds of hot sauce.
Yeah, and so if you want to spend 2 hours figuring out which the right hot sauce is, you can do that, and it's kind of part of the whole adventure of the daily life is to figure out things that should be kind of normal and routine, but because.
Is this dish soap or is it laundry soap?
Yeah, exactly.
Does it smell or not have a scent?
And if you get desperate, you can ask the lady.
And they will help you, even though, like us, when we meet people who don't speak English, they just keep speaking louder to me, thinking that will help me understand the Korean, which of course it doesn't at all.
But they're sort of used to the translator thing, so that's definitely.
That's helpful.
Yeah, I don't know how you did this 20 years ago. More hand gestures or something like that.
More and more, yeah.
And so for me too, the work part has been an exciting opportunity to go back into the classroom and all kinds of ways in which that's been a different experience. I'll do a separate episode, kind of teacher related, but when I go to school in the morning, I'm going to school in the morning like I did for 38 years before, but it's a whole different experience, going on the bridge across the river, through a pretty busy neighborhood to a Christian school that's surrounded by 4 other Christian schools, and
tiny
kids showing up in their taxis or in their fancy cars, and going up the stairway with the little kindergartners and elementary school kids and the high school kids. So there's basically barely more than 100 high school kids, and so every kid knows every kid. I know every kid in the high school now, and it's a different kind of world to live in than when I had been used to. And thinking about next year, all the things that were the steep learning curve of settling in and figuring it out and realizing that it would be okay, to now feeling like, okay, now I'm going to do it and I get to do the same curriculum again, which is going to be nice, probably anyway. I'm thinking about, being an even better teacher next year, being able to do things that I had planned this year that worked out okay, to figure out how to make them better. Every teacher knows the second time is going to be better than the first time. Although there is the excitement of trying things the first time, and I've had that like pretty much every day. And the different kinds of diversity, it's just diverse, but different kinds of diversity, all these sorts of things that I now kind of feel comfortable and aware of, just like riding the subway. Once you get over the hump of it being different and strange and in different language, you have to figure it out, then you get to settle in and take advantage of all the cool opportunities that it offers. And the same thing just with the daily life of going to school feels like a new kind of adventure where I learn something every day, but it's comfortable and becoming normal.
And we put ourselves out in a different way here. Like later on tonight, we're going to go meet some friends of our friend Christine, and it's an hour ride on the subway or the bus. And I don't see us like getting on Caltrain and going to San Francisco, grabbing dinner, and then coming all the way home in an evening, especially a day before work. Whereas here, it's kind of the norm because everything's kind of far away.
Yeah, I mean, daily life is very different, but it's become totally normal and manageable. And so again, thinking about next year and being able to do all this the second time, I mean, now we have restaurants we know how to go to, we know how to get to the Symphony Hall, we know how to go and get tickets for all the different million concerts we can go to.
We never have to go to IKEA again.
That would be nice, yeah. And so this, I mean, I'm sure there's lots more to learn, and all kinds of stuff can happen that we don't expect or anticipate or whatever. But there's also a lot more that we're looking forward to exploring. And so this is like, a long conversation about where we're at right now. Anything you're kind of particularly thinking about next year that you think is going to be different because we...
Well, I told you earlier, I'm a little sad, but because of our timing, in the States, I'm actually not going to be here to greet the new staff. And last year, that was a significant experience to have the previous teaching staff say, come on, we'll show you where the grocery store is. We'll show you how to get on the subway. We'll show you how to get on a bus. And I feel a little bit sad that I won't be here for that. But I'm sure once I return, I can make my presence known to the new staff. We're going to have Thanksgiving here this year, which I swore I wasn't going to do. But again, because of timing, I don't think it makes sense to go home again in November when I've just been there. So that'll be kind of a fun experience. There's like 10 or 12 Americans, so I'm sure we could make a fun thing of it. We had a great Super Bowl party, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just looking forward to hopefully meeting some new people, continuing the relationships that we have established. I feel like we have 3 special friends here,
Mm-hmm.
and I enjoy being with them, and we'll look forward to spending more time with them. I'm gonna try to figure out more ways to exercise. The old ladies are at it again in the park, so I'll be joining them soon.
And this
And
coming,
more travels for me.
so we have some friends coming in this week, including Denise's brother and sister, and another friend's going to visit us, and we're going to go to probably the 2 main other places people go to when they visit Korea, which is Busan, the city at the very southern tip, and then Jeju Island, which is the biggest kind of vacation resort island, although they also have agriculture and stuff there. And so we're going to be visiting that over spring break, and there's lots of other parts of Korea that we're excited to explore over the coming weeks, but this spring break is going to be another big trip for us, where we take the train down to the southern tip of the country and then take a plane to an island off the coast, and all that's going to be new, warmer,
Yeah,
fruit trees blossoming down there.
hopefully. And then Galen will go back to work, and Carrie, Adam, and Claire and I will actually go to Japan for 10 days. So I'm going to hopefully sneak in some more countries next year to visit while Galen's working.
Yes. So that's, I guess, our kind of conversation about where we're at right now, excited about next year, the transition that we're making to living here kind of normally and settling in, but lots of adventures in store. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. There'll be a teacher episode sometime soon.
Okay,
Bye.
and I'm not kidding. I need more visitors next year. Fall and spring seem to be the best in terms of weather.
Yeah, the rates are still cheap.
Yeah.
Bye.
Goodbye.